is a very good day to start making a car. I'm thinking particularly of January 5th, 1914, when the Ford Motor Company made a revolutionary announcement that from now on they would have 8 rather than 9-hour shifts, a 5-day work week, and they were doubling workers' pay to $5 a day, which doesn't sound like much now, but that was enough in those days, governments having not yet inflated the currency, that a worker in one of Ford's plants could afford to buy one of his cars after saving for less than a year. And this is important not just to the history of the car industry, but to the meaning of freedom and the importance of the free enterprise system for the average person. Because a lot of people say, oh, capitalism is rapacious, it squeezes people as hard as it can, the government's got to step in and redistribute. And they forget that if we don't create wealth, you can't redistribute it. You cannot give out that which has not been made in the first place. But they overlook a much more important point as well, that it is by allowing people freedom to innovate, to experiment, that you create more wealth. And when you create more wealth, everybody gets more of it. You're sometimes told, okay, we need to strike a balance. We can't have the place run by left-wing maniacs who don't see that wealth has to be created before it can be distributed. But we also can't just allow rapacious capitalists to run amok and squeeze everybody as hard as they can, treat them harshly to a Scrooge and Marley before the visit from the Three Spirits of Christmas. So we need a kind of mixed economy where the government steps in and makes sure that fairness is observed. But here's the thing. You can't have the left-wing maniacs running the place. We've tried that experiment so many times, including most recently in Venezuela, and they destroy everything because they don't understand where wealth comes from. They think it comes from a truncheon, not from the free and creative use of human hands. But this idea, on the other hand, that rapacious capitalists left to their own devices will create a society in which only a very small group of people have all the money and everybody else is reduced to Marx's sort of toiling army of the proletariat, overlooks the critical point that Ford understood, which is that you get more productive work out of happier people. Not only are they better off materially, but they also feel that you are treating them justly, and that's enormously important to people. So the mean-spirited guy who pays too little loses good workers. His factory is not efficient. He is driven into bankruptcy precisely by his rapacious conduct. And among other things, Ford made a point, starting in 1914, of hiring workers other people wouldn't, the handicapped. He made room for them in the factory. There was a genuine humanitarian impulse here, not separate from the profit motive, not even just entwined with it. They were one and the same. And so you do not need government to guard against maldistribution of wealth. If you look at the modern world, we say, oh, well, how has the 1% emerged? We live in a bureaucratic thicket, enormous heaps of rules and regulations that only people who can afford fancy lawyers and accountants can take advantage of. What you see today is by no means a free enterprise society, and the skewed distribution of income that you see is the result not of too little government, but of too much. You go back to 1914, nobody made Ford do this. It was his response to needing to have a more productive, happier workforce, was to treat them better and pay them better. His factories were generating wealth on a scale nobody had ever seen before, and he shared it as a sound business as well as a sound humanitarian decision. So you think back to that living wage, and remember the words of Samuel Gompers, a leading union man at the time, head of the AFL, said the greatest crime that any company can commit against workers is to fail to turn a profit. Well, Ford turned a profit with his new techniques, and he shared it with his workers and set the pattern for the most productive, wealth-generating economy the world had ever seen. Not through maniacal coercion, not through a mixed state, but through unfettered human ingenuity harnessed to the creation of wealth and to the enhancement of fairness. Remember that every time you look at a car, it's freedom that makes everybody better off. If you enjoy these features, please visit my website, that's www.johnrobson.ca, make a pledge through Patreon or PayPal to keep the commentary coming, and of course keep watching The Rebel, subscribing to The Rebel, and supporting its endeavors to bring you the news and commentary you won't get anywhere else.